What do you mean? You're gonna start recording right now?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
we
Sorry about
are we
that.
are
Okay, well,
recording
hello.
now. Hi, Kale, like the vegetable.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Very grateful to be talking to you this
Great.
beautiful night.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, such a great day. I'm very happy to be talking to you because you have a subject that um, everyone, there's not like any single human being that could not relate to this topic. And I think it's very important for me to talk about this with an expert like you because you are like specialized on anxiety, depression, and how to get rid of it. So, can you tell me a little bit more about your background? Not your background, like professional background, like how did everything start? I know we were talking about this off camera and stuff, but maybe some of your audience they want to know more about who you are, like why, why?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. So, when I've been doing this for 4 or 5 months now, like professionally. But
Mhm.
I've always had a knack for wanting to help people, and now I'm so grateful and so blessed to be able to find people that I can actually help and I can connect with and help them change and transform their lives. It's very, very important to me to make a difference, and I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be doing this. But to tell you about where this all started, life comes full circle. You know, I had a really rough childhood, very abusive, and traumatic and challenging. And through those experiences, I resented the world and authority, and I had a real weird way about learning things. You know, although I went to school for pre-med and I have a biology degree and a psychology minor, and I could learn things, I've always been very, very skeptical about things. And the good in that was that I never really tried to accept what authority would tell me just at face value. So
Yeah,
it would research more and dig into things more. But the bad in that was that I was putting walls up constantly in my life, and I was diagnosed with depression, ADHD, anxiety,
the
insomnia,
whole package.
PTSD, yeah, the whole gambit. And as you said, like anybody can relate to some of these things. Definitely anxiety and depression, they're higher than they've ever been before, and that's reported cases. So there's lots of people out there that were like me before I went to therapy, that just know that they have it and they're just toughing it out, or they're not sure that they have chemical imbalances and things like that going on, and they're confused. But everybody has a little bit of anxiety for the most part until
Yeah,
they
yeah,
understand how to cure it. so
yeah. I
so
think that
that's
nowadays it's like very common to live, like it's super common to hear people saying like, "Oh, I'm just taking this like bunch of pills for the anxiety or for the depression," or like it's becoming very normal,
it
very
is.
very normal. You know?
It's funny because that's the way that our society is right now. Something new happens and it's weird, and then it has to be very normal. Everyone has to know about it, and then it becomes so commonplace that they start niching it down into teeny little, well, I have social anxiety, well, I have anticipation anxiety, well, I have, whatever. And they start making it into these individualized things. So then they start rewriting textbooks for these things, and they start trying to treat each of these things. And therapy works for a lot of people, but if it's not working for anybody listening to this, I can tell you exactly why. Um, and I can tell you that I can tell you some things too that are going to help you, just in this
Please
conversation.
do, please do. In my personal side, I did a lot of therapy while I was growing up, like a lot. Like most of my life, I've been in therapies, and to be honest, it never worked with me. That's why I was looking for other ways of healing, and that's how I get into the like in my job, in the work that I do with people and healing, and in the spiritual life and everything. Because for me personally, it was not working, and as you said, there's like a lot of people that can relate to that. So tell us about it because you sell happiness, my friend. That's beautiful.
That's right. So like the reason why spirituality works so well is because it's a lot of inner engineering, inner working. And the reason why therapy doesn't work for some people is because there's survival instincts, there's survival mechanisms. So before we became the people that we are today, we still were these people. Biologically, we really haven't changed much in thousands and thousands of years. So all of our survival mechanisms, all of our wiring is still very old school. I say we have old hardware and we're trying to upgrade to new software all the time. And the only way to do that is to really understand what the old hardware is doing. So the old hardware, ancient man was looking for every teeny little thing wrong in his environment, because we're these tiny, weak, bald creatures that could easily get gobbled up at any moment. And we're still very low in the food chain, but we just shove all the animals out from our cities and our civilizations and everything. And just to paint like a clearer picture, even 150 years ago, wolves were a regular problem for people. There were wolves jumping in people's houses and eating them, which is something you don't hear about anymore.
Yeah.
So
just with birds sometimes.
Just some birds once in a while.
With bears and snakes. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, bears. That's right. But it's on the outskirts, and people don't really think about that. And a lot of the animals are adapting to that kind of thing. So you hear bears are attacking your trash cans and stuff. But how much biology can really change in 150 years when your lifespan's almost 100 years? Nothing can really change. In fact, the human brain's actually getting smaller in the last 1,000 years. So that's not helping.
I've read that. Yeah, I've read something related to that. That's
certainly not helping us.
I'm scared. I don't want my brain to be going smaller.
But the great thing is that we only need a small percentage to hack into this thing to rewire us for happiness, for peace, for calmness and clarity and stuff like that. So one of the reasons why therapy really doesn't work very well, but it almost feels like it does, and then it's like, why am I not getting any better? If you could picture, like, if you and I are in the same village and a tiger is chasing me and I come running back to the village, the best thing for our village's survival is if I complain to you and if I vent to you and say, there is a tiger over there, we have to be careful. And everyone says, oh, like, thank you for sharing that. Let's not go over there where the tiger is. And the brain says, hey, nice job, trickles down something good, and you feel like you get something off of your chest. You feel, people say, I just need to tell you something. I need to vent, and then I'll feel good. And that's temporary, folks. It's only a good thing in a short period of time. What you're really doing is solidifying what happened to you in your brain. The more we talk about things, the more attention that we pay to things, the more we make that part of our inner wiring. And the reason for that is your brain is an absorption machine. There's no delete button up here. Everything you see and think and taste and smell and experience, it's always being pulled in. So there's no venting. There's nothing. There's no like release valve. Nothing. You're just putting more intention. And one of my favorite studies to talk about is they took two groups of people. One group thought they were very lucky, and one group thought they were very unlucky. And the unlucky group defines my early life, my life right up until a little over a year ago. This is who I was. I was cursed. Everything's happening to me. I have no control. People are out to get me. And the more that I thought about it, because I'm so smart, I could figure out I could figure out the truth. I knew that people were out to get me, and I could prove it. And I could come up with 50 examples why. And the more we think about things, the more that becomes our reality. So like, without diving into like law of attraction right away, how this study worked, scientific study, the unlucky group and the lucky group would walk through this area, and they didn't know that they were being studied yet, but there was money hidden around in the same places. These people had the same background, same demographics, just different beliefs. Lucky group finds the money. Oh, excuse me. There's
so interesting. Mm-hmm.
No problem at all. It was rare that they would miss any of it. The unlucky group rarely found the money at all. They missed it almost every single time.
Oh my God.
Because we define our realities with the attention that we give things, and we literally can see things differently. We have a different experience by the way that we believe. So what I'm always telling people is like, sure, there's nothing to be anxious about. A lot of people get anxious when they drive, or they get anxious in a social situation, or they get anxious, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Of course, there's nothing to be worried or anxious about. Maybe some people feel like there is, but most people can say rationally, I'm overreacting. But then why do I believe all the way down here at my core that I'm anxious? Why do I feel that? And you have to work through the layers, like peeling them back. So you have to start with logically, you don't need to be anxious. And you have to think a lot of things. So you and I were just talking about being mindful of our thoughts. And a lot of that comes from practice through meditation, through breathing, through exercise or yoga. It kind of allows us to hear what's going on up there. So what are we feeding our minds on a regular basis? And naturally, because we're wired to do so and find every little negative thing in the world, we're looking for negative and we're feeding our minds negative. So you have to look at those thoughts and reframe them for things that are not anxiety. So a lot of people say like, I'm going to fight anxiety and I'm not going to think about anxiety. And I'm saying you're thinking about it and you're feeding it right now just by saying that, just because it's the same thing as venting, because you can't, like if I asked you, don't think about an elephant right now.
The pink elephant example. It's like, oh shit, now I'm thinking about a pink elephant. Why?
Right. And you can't, because you can only absorb. So how do we fight anxiety? I say fighting anxiety makes no sense. Fighting anxiety is like attacking a beehive with a stick. You don't fight anxiety. You have to think like Martin Luther King Jr. You have to fight war with peace. You fight hate with love.
It's more like release anxiety, not fight anxiety.
You let it go by pulling in calmness. So people, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest hints are these cell phones. We need this instant gratification and we need tons of information all the time. So the more you put this down, just breathe and relax and look around and try to invite some more calmness and clarity, the more anxiety will be behind you. And then people that suffer from anxiety really badly, they're always looking over their shoulder and saying, is anxiety coming? Is it coming after me? And yes, it is. It's coming to get you. And it's going to be right there, especially if you're looking for it. But if when you realize you're looking for it, you turn your attention back towards something calm, something peaceful, something happy, something without any kind of negativity, you're telling your brain, there's no tiger in the room. It's okay. I can be in a state of calmness and relax. And the more and more you do that, the more you practice that, the more calm and clarity comes in your life. And just like we were talking about, the more happy and good you're focusing on, the more of that you're going to attract into your life, and the more you're going to see on a regular basis. And the happier you're going to get, the more peaceful you're going to get.
So you're trying to say like getting rid of an anxiety is a habit, right? It's a habit that you have to be working on it every single day, and you have to reinforce the thought every single day, not every single day, like every single time that, I don't know, like every single time that a thought of that arises a little bit. That's what you're trying to say?
Absolutely.
That's
so
correct?
let's pretend it's like a drug and you're addicted right now, because any habit that we have, whether it's thinking negatively, whether it's anxiety, whether it's whatever it is, sleeping in, it's practiced. And to create a habit out of something, we have to do everything that we can to not practice that old habit. So like if you're trying to quit drinking and you take 2 weeks off of drinking, but then you go out and you party, you're right back into wanting to drink on a regular basis again. So same thing with anxiety. Once you give it attention, you're taking steps backwards. So you have to notice it and then focus your attention on calmness and clarity. But it's not just anxiety. It's whatever you're doing in your life that is pulling anxiety towards you. And I've helped a lot of people over the last couple of months, and most people that I've helped, it's been for free. And it's been over the course of like 1 or 2 phone calls, and they get much, much better very quickly. And then a week later, a month later, they're kind of feeling like, well, sometimes I still get a little anxious. And I'm like, well, that's because you're not practicing. And it is perfectly normal. But if they keep paying attention to it, they're gonna start going back down to where they were before. And it takes habit, it takes consistency, and a lot of times it takes folks like you and me being there to talk to them, once a week or whatever it is, just to make sure that their thoughts are framed the right way, that they're not going back to old patterns where they're complaining.
You have just described it perfectly. Make sure their thoughts are framed in the right way. That is the core of the conversation. I love that. So how do you frame the thought? I remember the anxiety hack list that you sent me. that you were sharing in the group, oh my God, it was hilarious. So how can I apply that for reframing all those thoughts, like, you know, like taking the vitamins, drinking a lot of water? I mean, I think that is one layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that might be like maybe the first layer of the reframing. Yeah. Or how could you explain that?
So let's think back at like the pink elephant example and how you can't not think about anxiety. You can only think about calmness and clarity. So one of the biggest problems I see with my clients is that, and it's, you know, it's funny to even call it a problem because every problem is just the solution. And it's like, if they were 100% cured, then there wouldn't be a problem. So when you find something that's wrong, it's really good. And we can use this as an example. When you're like, oh shoot, I'm screwing up.
Yeah.
That's already framing it in the wrong way. It's, aha, I found another leak. I found another hole in the ship that I can plug up and fix. So every one of these things, like, since I don't wake up and I'm not a 10 out of 10 every single day, all day long, all the time, I know that there are areas in my life that I still have to reframe and I still have room to grow. And that's really good when I find something that I'm doing wrong, or if I find out I'm completely wrong about something, it's like, yes, okay, now I can fix that thing and I'm going to get just a little bit better and just a little bit better. So if you're looking at your life and saying, you know, screw this thing, I'm not even going to give this any time. Like if it comes at like aggression, or if it comes at there's a negative thing and you're focusing on the negative thing by separating yourself from it, you're still absorbing the negative thing. So if you see something negative or if something bothers you, instead of focusing on it and getting upset with it or saying, I'm going to separate myself from that, just allow yourself to be separate from that by inviting the thing that you really want to experience in your life. So if somebody does something wrong to you, for instance, and this, I still have a lot of momentum of people doing wrong things to me that are still coming my way. I turn it and I pray for them. And I don't believe in prayer in the same way that like religion believes in prayer, but
yeah, of course,
in like an affirmation kind of way, and I'm going to believe in kind of way, because we were talking logically and then thoughts. So the thoughts that we have are very important. So a prayer can be very much like I hope that person, like, everything good comes to them and that their family is healthy and that their enemies become their friends and that their friends are healthy. And the more love I try to shower onto them, if I think enough, then I actually start to feel it. And if I start to feel it, then I believe it. And now I'm down to the belief level of gratitude, of happiness, of unconditional love. And then that starts to reframe the way that I look at things. And then when this person pops up in my head, I'm not thinking like,
oh, I hate that person. Oh,
I'm just
he did me wrong. Oh,
I'm thinking about their enemies smiling at them, and I'm thinking about their children like loving them, and I'm like, oh, that's such a better feeling. That's what I want to invite into my reality, because if you hate, you are inviting hate into your reality.
Yes.
The orange, so true. Example.
That you cannot squeeze an orange and have lemon juice.
Exactly. Like what's on the inside is our control. So anything that comes out of us was on the inside first. So when I'm angry, it's not because my wife and I are having an argument. It's not because I'm blindsided by a bill or because something happened at work. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with me having some bad orange juice in there, and I need to be focusing on releasing those things. So where does that come from? It comes from the attention that I'm paying to things, whether it's media or whether it's, articles that I read or people out there that I'm surrounding myself with or I'm paying too much attention to that are negative. So a lot of it is changing habits and changing old ways where you were inviting negativity.
The old ways of thinking in the regular consciousness. Yeah, that's totally true. I want to emphasize a little bit on what you just say about the people that have done you wrong. Because sometimes when we're upset, when we're angry, and we have all these negative feelings, let's call them the contrast emotions, because we don't want to feel that,
right.
Mm-hmm. But then by knowing what we don't want to feel, then we will know what we do want to feel, and then we can walk towards that space.
Absolutely.
But it's so real what you just told me, because for example, in my personal life, when someone do wrong to me, it's like, Barbs, no one is doing wrong to you. Like, they're acting from their own understanding, from
Mhm.
their own perspective, and from their own situation. And there's a great book that's called The Four Agreements, and it says, like, every time, don't take anything personal, because every time you try to take anything personal, you will find if you're trying to find for reasons to take things personal, you will always find. If you're try, like when Dyer, like he said, if you try to find for reasons to feel offended, you will always find a reason to be offended all the time. And that just like nurture our side of negativity, of anger, of bitterness, of that like horrible cancer. So like a good prayer for that is just that I use a lot is like, thank you universe, thank you God for letting me seeing this different, for like changing my perspective, for allowing me to come back to love and see this situation with love and not with fear. But it took me a while to understand that, because I was seeing all of this in the intellectual side. I was that kind of person, like, oh, where's the proof?
Right.
Oh, okay, like, okay, I need to see a case study of that. Oh, really? Okay, is there like a science method? And then I realized, like, okay, everything comes from the source within. Like, even though they're giving you the scientific proof, that scientific proof comes from something bigger than you could even understand. You
Mhm.
know, so getting rid of that intellectual part of my belief system, it actually helped me a lot to see um, my life from a different lens. And yeah, what you were just saying about that is, it's totally true. I can definitely relate to that. It's amazing.
It feels so much better from that approach, does it not?
Yeah, why not use it? you know like, it might be real, it might be not, but for me it feels better, for me it
Oh,
works. So I just want to stay in that area, into that blank space where I can attract things that are actually positive and nurturing and self-loving and self-care. They're just like being in the regular consciousness, hating everyone and hating the politicians and hating the people because you did me wrong and this is your fault, that's why I'm not succeeding in life, I hate you, and all that stuff, like pointing. And I feel you, man. I totally feel you.
very cool.
Yeah.
And it's totally real. Like, I use the science, like the dollar example, because people want to relate to science so much more than they want to believe some kind of spirituality, like hoo-ha, but it's so real in attracting the right things into your life and experiencing things better. I mean, the first side effects of this stuff is just being a little bit more peaceful and a little bit happier. And I think anybody would enjoy that as a side effect to try
Yeah.
and experience life like this.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, what would you do with a client that is coming from that point of life, like of that point of perspective of life that you were telling me prior to the recording, that you help people to get out of the couch?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because getting out of the couch is very tough when you're stuck in there and you don't want to move your
Uh,
butt anywhere.
it's crazy. It can't be as easy as just telling them, like, get out of your house. Like,
Yeah.
they're agoraphobics. They're afraid to leave their house, or some people are afraid to get off their couch, or they're afraid to travel 5 miles away from their house, something like that. It's not as easy as just doing the logic, but a lot of times it's a few things. A lot of times it has to do with where the fear is coming from. So just to give you an example, one of my clients had this tremendous fear of oral surgery, and she had this crippling anxiety that led to depression, that led to her being stuck in the house. Of course, after she had a failed root canal, which is like the worst horrible oral surgery you can
Uh,
imagine. And I'm sitting back here when she's telling me this story thinking, like, it's your fault you had a failed root canal, and it's your fault you had to get a root canal because you for 40 years were afraid of dentists, and you've attracted that negativity into your mouth. But if I'm wrong, that's perfectly fine, because that's not what I told her or anything. It's what I'm thinking. But I'm thinking, how do I figure out how to relate these things to where she's at right now? And the more we talk, I find out that her dad was just the rock in her life. He was this solid guy. He was Superman. Nothing could harm him, and this and that. And he passed away a couple years back. And around the time that he passed away, it was like bombardment. Like, he passed away, she lost her job, she had bad oral surgery, then she's in the house, and then it got worse. And I was like, it can't just be the fact that the dad passed away and that perpetuated everything. I was like, what's deeper about this? And she's like, well, my dad had throat cancer, and he had throat cancer for, the doctor said he wasn't going to live for more than 6 months, but he had throat cancer for like 20 years before it finally got the better of him. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see this. So your dad was fighting cancer for 20 years. I was like, how did he handle that? And she's like, badly. Like, the in and out of the hospitals, they made him miserable, and
there you go.
Stopped some of his habits. And I'm like, okay, so here's your foundation is your dad, and you look at him like Superman, but he was not Superman. He was not being Superman for you, and he was showing signs of weakness. And we're all human and we make mistakes and stuff, but we really have to try in front of our kids to be solid. So that's where I started piecing the puzzle pieces together. And I was like, now if you notice this, what I want you to do for your memory when you're thinking positive thoughts and feeding your mind good stuff is to remember your dad as you want to remember him, and not remember him as struggling and fleeting through life, because that's how he'd want to be remembered. That was the true him when he was at his best.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people have memories and past traumas that they're struggling with, and that kind of helps them turn the corner. And so she was in the house for a few years, and then she was stuck on the couch for several months, and she couldn't move. She had people helping her and things like that, and she was afraid to. And after, some people really, they act, and I give them a few things to act on, and it starts simple, and then as I work with them, it's the reframing, because reframing is really difficult, but that's like my superpower, is to say, that thing that you said, why not say it like this? Why not try to tweak it? And then people eat that stuff up too. But after 2 big conversations with me, she calls me and says she's on her way to an amusement park, a water park. And I'm like, really? You're out of the house? And she's like, yep. And we're going to the water park, and I'm going to have fun today. And I don't care if I feel anxious or not. I'm just going to go out and do it. And I can't think of a more anxious place than a water park, just surrounded by tons of kids peeing in pools and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, good for you. Like, that's it. And then she calls me later and says, I jumped in the pool. I did a cannonball. It was a great time. It was amazing to be outside in the sun. I feel fantastic. And she's just complete transformation. And it's just because we get so stuck. You use the word lens. We get so stuck using the wrong lens. And we think we know how reality is, and we think we know how we're experiencing the world and all that kind of stuff. But if someone can help us just to turn the perspective just a little bit, it can mean the world. It can change your entire life. And it's great to find people that can help you look at things just a little differently,
Yeah, I just need like a little poke, kick in the butt.
Like, a little, okay.
Yeah, the reframing of like change the way you look at things, and things will change,
Yes.
So
that's another Wayne Dwyer quote, right?
Wayne Dyer or Deepak Chopra, I don't really remember.
That's right.
But yes, and it's amazing. When I first started in this path of transformation, and that was the basis. It took me months not to understand, because I could understand it. Like, I could definitely understand, like, if you change the way you look at things, okay, but how? How? I'm so rooting to my old habits and into my own limiting beliefs, into my own wounds. Like, how do I change the way I look at things? And then during one meditation, I was praying for that answer. I was like, how? During a meditation, the answer was one thought at a time. I was like, oh my God, boom shakalaka. That was like, are you serious? It was amazing. But after months of meditating, after months of having the willingness, after those months of doing the work, of really putting all my energy in healing, it came into my head one thought at a time. I'm like, whoa, this is hilarious. Okay, I get it, one thought at a time. So every time I got these thoughts, I was like, one thought at a time. And then boom, reframe it. That was my kicking the butt phrase, one thought at a time. It was hilarious just to have that understanding that came out of my own alignment with my source when I was in meditation, that it just came. Like the answer just came into my head and it changed my life. And I don't think I cannot go back into my old. I cannot. It's amazing, man. Like, and that's how I start everything. I was like, if I can do this, like anyone can do it. Like everyone should do it. You know?
It should, and it's all about taking responsibility for your own life. So many people are out there struggling, and they think that it's all this stuff happening to them, that their lives are the problem, that their parents were the problem, that their significant others are the problem, or whatever, or their kids are the problem, God forbid. And if they start walking this path where they're realizing that they have the choice and the ability to respond to things the way that they want to respond to them, then they start changing the way they look at things. And I love how you said that, because it's like people go, well, I can't change. And it's like, no, that's true, because pills don't cure things. They don't just fix things. And everybody wants a pill and instant gratification, instant satisfaction.
Yeah.
But that's not how reality works. But if you take it in bite-sized pieces and just when the thought comes to you, then you have the ability to choose to get upset or learn from it, or get sad or let it go and focus on something good. And if you just, like you said, one thought at a time, just little bite-sized pieces, a day, a week, a month, a year, your entire reality is completely shifted. And there's time. You might as well go about it in that approach. If you do anything else, you're just going to be putting a Band-Aid over something that's going to get infected. It's going to get bad. And that's the problem with the way people are handling most of their problems these days, is that they're just trying to cover it up rather than focus on healing from like the inside first.
Yeah, you were mentioning me before the recording that you were in that place, you were in that space where you were just putting a Band-Aid and you were not doing the deep work of self-discovering and mindset. And how do you know when you are just putting a Band-Aid? How do you know that you're not doing the deep work? For people out there that maybe they're questioning, like, how do I know? Because I feel good right now. So how do I know that it's just not temporary relief and very superficial relief?
That's a really good question. So like some of it'll be obvious, right? Some of it you'll say, this is my answer to this. And then that situation happens again and you react in a bad way and you're like, maybe that wasn't the answer, right? But the other things are like, maybe we feel a little bit better. Let's say the Band-Aid makes you feel better for weeks or months, but are you curing the problem? Are you getting it at its source? So for me, it's something that I'm really good at in noticing other people, and I don't always take my own like best advice, but I comes from being like doing a lot of internal thinking and thinking about, well, if I did it this way, what would be the outcome? If I did it this way, what would be the outcome? And why am I doing it this way? Am I doing it this way because this is the easiest route? Am I doing it this way because I'm nervous that some people might not like what I'm doing? Do I have pride or ego at the core of this whole thing? But what I've discovered is if you can try to approach it without a label, as if you don't know anything, because maybe you're like me, but the more that I learn, the more that I realize I know absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah,
anything, and it's
the
kind
more that I learn, the more that I unlearn.
Right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
It does, absolutely, because I think that the smartest people in the world realize that there's just so much to be questioned and so much that we probably shouldn't be believing, especially when it comes to experience. So it goes back to that lens, and without having some help, coach like you or myself to say, this lens is formed because of these experiences. So to step away from that, we have to address your experiences, or we have to shift the lens's perspective. It becomes really tough. So people that aren't being coached or wanting to coach themselves should question if there's pride, if there's ego, if they're nervous, if there's any negative, if they're afraid, if they're trying to change because they're afraid of something, if they're upset, if that anything on, like, we'll say, like, the dark side, if anything negative has to do with that, then it's very likely that change that you're creating is not going to help serve the best part of who you are. But if you approach it without labeling or judging it, try to pretend you know nothing, and walk into it with an open heart, and try to do it out of love. I was just listening to Dyer, and he said that you have to have infinite patience. If you approach something without expecting any outcome at all, without expecting a time, I'm gonna work on myself in this way, and I don't care when I get better. It lessens the pressure, and you have to have the patience. Means that you know that you're going to get to where you're going. It's going to happen regardless, as long as you do it with love, and you keep your chin up and keep your head nice and clean. Then you're going on the right path. But you have to dial it back every once in a while. You have to ask yourself, is this serving me? I define it like two different ways. I say there's what's right, and then there's what's true. And what's right is, like, you and I could be in an argument, and maybe you're totally right. You're right to tell me something about myself. But in getting into an argument and butting heads, that's not really serving either of us to move forward and to find more happiness and inner peace. That's not helping anxiety or depression or anything like that. It's only hurting those things. So it's right, and it's validated. People say, I have anxiety. The doctor told me I have chemical imbalances, and that's why I'm clinically depressed, and I've had depression for 30 years. So that's mine, and I'm validated, and I'm right. And it's like, yes, you're right. But is it truth? Is it serving you?
How has it been serving you so far?
Right. How has it been serving you so far? How look at where it's gotten you so far. So that's why you have to separate truth and what's right. I use an example, like if you're driving and someone comes up behind you and they're tailgating it, you notice in your mirror and you're going, check out this a-hole behind me, and, like, I can't believe they're driving like this, and people are crazy and they're horrible drivers, and you have all the right in the world to yell at them. You might even feel like you're justified to tap on your brakes to try to shoo them away. But what you're doing is inviting angst and fear and anger into your life. So what I say is, that's right, but if you want to serve truth, just turn your mirror up and let them do whatever they want, and sit back and smile and breathe that fresh air and enjoy that free sunlight that we have. And that's truth. That's serving you. Everything's okay. You're in your car. You're safe. Everything's good. You can even pull over if you want to. If you're going to be 5 minutes late, that's fine. Just allow it to happen. Just don't get bogged down in trying to be right so much, and let it go and just be and go for truth.
Yeah, like he said, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? He's always saying that. He's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? You're in an argument with your wife, with your boyfriend, with a friend, father, whatever, and do you want to be right? Because you can be right, but you can be unhappy as hell because you're right? Like, you're right, and your ego is fed, and I was like, look at me, I'm right.
I'm right
all the time.
And you just invited rage into your life for an hour or whatever.
And you're right. And how's the relationship with your significant other? How is it working? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? So from that quote, I was like, I want to be happy. And every time I got into an argument with someone, Barbara, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I know I'm right. Do I have to really prove it? Do I have to really be like, no, look, just like, look. I don't have to. If I know I'm right, it's fine. If he doesn't know that he's right, it's fine. Whatever you want. I cannot control your thoughts.
I think a big thing for that is, like, a lot of people think that arguments solve things, and, like, I argued with everybody all the time about everything. I was opinionated, and I liked arguing because I'm very honest about I don't get sidetracked with my emotions in an argument. I'm very focused on being right.
Yeah.
I know from experience, it doesn't matter how right you are anyway. You can't teach anybody anything until they're willing to accept it and learn it. And if they're arguing with you, their lens is already shaped. They're already coming at you from that perspective, and there's
Yeah,
nothing you can do to
you
change
can
that.
do. Mm-hmm.
As much as right as you're going to be. So that question is so funny. And that's like when I hit rock bottom for the last time that I hit it, that was the question that I was asking myself before I even knew Wayne Dyer. I was like, I just want to be happy. I don't care if I find out that I was wrong about everything in my life. I don't care if I've wasted all of my money on school. I don't care if I've wasted relationships and friendships. I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
If people get to that place, then they're in a place of receptivity. They're like, okay, what do I got to do now? Now I'm ready. And that's
yeah, it's very beautiful, just getting rid of the toxic things, the toxic thoughts that we have created for ourselves throughout our life experiences, having this victim mode, like, why is this happening to me? Now, why is this happening for me? This is happening for me. This is happening for me every time. Because I mean, we're human. Yeah, we're coaches. We're trying to help people. We try to be always in our best mindset. We're trying like to help people be in their best mindset, but we cannot always be happy. There's always a time for everything, a time for you happy, a time for you to experience depression, a time for you to experience sadness, anger. But the thing is, like, you are not those feelings. You
I
are
am not
not those
depressed. I'm
feelings.
feeling depressed.
Exactly. So having the understanding of that and being in the alignment that we all come from the same source and that we are actually love. There's more love in the world than hatred. There's a lot of people that are trying to help other people to pull them up. There's a lot of people that are helping people that are starving in the streets. There's more love in the world that hate, you know?
We're
And
definitely naturally supposed to love. When kids are born, they have to learn hate. There's not racism when kids are born.
oh yeah.
There's not fear. There's love and curiosity and endless determination for growth too. We forget all these things as we grow. And social media has been a real problem for that growth. But I feel like more and more people like me and you are popping up on there that are trying to make things better. And I think that it's actually going to help us get back to that understanding that we're all connected and we're all one, and we need to work together to make this
Yeah.
place better for everybody.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. When you get to that understanding, everything starts making sense out of your sense. Do you get me? Like, everything it's working in a way that it doesn't make sense rationally, but it makes sense here in your heart. And when you get into that point, people get it. You can feel that aura, that connection, that energy with other people when you are being honest with yourself and when you're speaking through your heart. And is preaching by the example is how we expand, and that is just very beautiful. So to recap our conversation, and for the audience, I would like just to, we are very rational beings, so we like to have step 1, step 2, step 3. Can you tell us the the steps for happiness and less
Absolutely.
anxiety? What do you use in your daily basis?
So we have to control our minds, and we are not in control of our minds, because if we were, then we wouldn't be thinking about the time that Jenny ripped my heart out in the 5th grade randomly. It's like it just throws us random ideas and thoughts, and we're at the mercy of these things. So to get to a level of mind control where we can invite peace and happiness into our lives regularly, and calmness and clarity, and gratitude. Those things, you can't feel those things and be anxious and be in a state of depression at the exact same time. So I help people with anxiety and depression because I'm really trying to get them to that beautiful place of happiness and gratitude and love. And to get to there, You have to train the mind. And to train the mind, you have to start with breathing, because breathing is our gateway from subconscious to conscious mind. So you have to be teaching yourself to deeply and calmly breathe and focusing on your breath. And it has to be a regular exercise, and do this 10, 20 times a day, where you just take a moment to just relax a little bit and do something good for your body. I do a lot of videos where I'm like outside in the snow and stuff. And
I've watched those videos. Oh my God. I don't know if I would ever be able to do that.
You can't. So it just takes a little practice. But a lot of it is breathing and controlling my thoughts. So one thing I'll tell you about the snow is, if I'm tense, I'm freezing.
Oh yeah. I've discovered that myself too. Yeah.
But if I just let it go and I breathe and I get calm, my body warms right up almost instantaneously. So when I'm sitting out there and meditating, I just keep letting it go and letting it go. And life is like grabbing a big scoop of sand. And if you hold on to that sand really softly, you have a really good control. Lots of life in your hand. You're doing great. But if you try to squeeze that, all that sand it'll trickle out of your hand.
Yeah.
You lose it. You lose almost all of it. So to get a good grip on life, you have to do it calmly and softly. I think Wayne Dyer says, putting your hand in the water, not trying to grab the water. You just allow it to experience. So the breathing is where it starts, but you have to look at your life and look at, what are you trying to control all the time? What do you need your way? What has to be done? That I need to wake up at this time every day. I need to have my dinner set where none of the food is touching, and it has to be quiet when I sleep. And we get all these, we define ourselves so rigid. I'm a really big fan of Alan Watts. I don't know if you listen to any Alan Watts. Excellent. So he describes like the squishy people and the prickly people or something like that. And the more prickly we make ourselves, the more defined and rigid, the more difficult our lives are. So everybody that I help with anxiety has this very, it's gotta be, I can't stand when that happens. And my husband, when he chews, and it's like, you got to learn to let things go like that. So like when you go from breathing and you get into a place of calmness and clarity, and if you can focus on your breathing enough, you become in the present moment. Then you need to invite calmness and clarity, because our minds are wired for negativity, for pain, for suffering. So it goes breathing.
It's easier just to go to that path. It's easier being in the comfort zone of that thought.
So easy. We're naturally wired for it. I mean, it feels good in a sense to complain and to find all the negativity, but it's hard work being happy, but it's the best work you can possibly do for yourself. So you get into a state of presence, and then it's positive thought insertion. So breathing, presence, positive thought insertion, and then reframing everything in your reality and trying to then let go of the things that you think define you as a person, and trying to find that, as you said, we're love on the inside. And a lot of people don't know that or believe that. And it's a shame that they don't, but if they search the world, or if they search themselves enough, they'll realize that is all that we are supposed to be. And we just have these outer layers of conditioning, of traumas that have happened to us. And then we have
separation. Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's served a purpose. Judging taught us how to say that berry is poisonous and that berry is good for us. But now we have to try not to, and try to experience every moment as it is. I say stuff like, the past is a memory, the future is just a fantasy, but the only thing that really exists right now is the present, and the present is continuously reinventing itself. If you have a dog and you yell at your dog, 2 minutes later, they're just stop trying to lick you and play with you again, because dogs are, hey, let's go, we're in the present moment, everything around us is moving.
Kids as well. Kids are the same.
Right? Kids
exactly. Are the same. I love them. I love kids so much.
They're so resilient. They're like, oh, are you sad from before? It's like, no, you're sad from before. Let it go. Your kid's fine. Make it up to them by being happy. And we carry this baggage with us. The boat isn't controlled by the wake that's left behind, but we're always feeling like we're always looking back to define ourselves by all that nonsense. But if we're defining ourselves by who we want to be and who we want to be right now and what we want to experience right now, then sky's the limit. Then we do whatever we want.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Oh my God. Yeah, it's been so refreshing, because we just talk about a whole belief system that we've been growing with since we were kids, and they took away our innocence and our true true human side, that is love, that is just like sharing, that is living in the present moment. And what it's funny that you say that stuff about the present moment, that oh, the past is it's gone and the future is just like imagination, blah blah blah, because I think exactly the same. What I used to do is like, you know what, the past are just like images in my head. They're just like images. It's not real. Yes, it
They're not even
happened.
accurate. They're not even remotely accurate too, because it was through the lens that you were experiencing. Just like you said, don't get mad at that person because they're doing their best with what they
Perspective is
have.
reality.
Yeah, it's fantasy. It's not even real, and it gets worse the more we embellish it. You know,
Yeah.
why why think about it? Why focus on it?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that work lately in my personal life. No, it's a never ending path. You will learn every single day. You will never stop learning. Like there's so many things out there. Like I feel so ignorant in everything, as we were talking about minutes ago, because there's so many things, such amazing things you can learn. And you can also learn from the people that are surrounding you, from the people that are affecting somehow your life experience and the way you decide to think and you decide to live that experience. Yeah, it's amazing. Oh man, seriously, it's been a freaking pleasure talking to you.
Same
I
here.
love having these kind of conversations with people. Seriously.
Well, let's do it again sometime. It was a lot of fun for me too.
Yes, if you have a link to like a web page or your Facebook group, and if you give me the permission, if people ask, can I give the anxiety, the PDF that you send me?
Yeah, definitely. And I have a free ebook too that really highlights a lot of the stuff that we were talking about, plus kind of like
Awesome.
a good history. Um, if you just tag me in it, all people have to do is just go to my profile, my banner, like at the top of the page. If they click that, it has all my free links right there. I have a mini course, I have a YouTube, my group. I post tons of stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Kale. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
And we will be in touch. You
Excellent.
better.
Same to you.
Have a great night
You too. Bye
or
bye.
day. Bye.